And gratitude also shifts your perspective and gets you to understand, like, boy, I could be in Africa right now, living in the Congo, getting malaria. You know, I could be fucked. I could be in some war-torn part of the world where I'm trying to escape.
That's right.
You know, I think that's also one of the things that people find so disturbing about this Trump ban on immigrants. You know, now they're not calling it a ban anymore. But Seth Meyers did a hilarious thing where they were saying that it's not a ban. Then he showed all these clips of Pence and Trump and all these different people calling it a ban, the ban. And it hurts people when you know that this is a country that was founded on immigrants. I mean, this is a country that everyone in this country was originally an immigrant, other than the Native Americans. And the Native Americans, by the way, were fucking immigrants too, because 10,000 years ago, this entire country was covered by 2 miles of ice. Okay, I mean, everyone came here from somewhere else. I mean, in terms of recent humans, like recent being the last 20,000 years, everyone came from somewhere else. When they do these genetic examinations of Native Americans, one of the things they find is that they share common ancestors in Siberia. I mean, they came across the Bering Strait when it was connected, and this is a place where people come.
That's our idea.
Yeah. So when you're blocking these people that are in one of the worst places in the world, Syria, you know, and then there was like this list of all these Muslim countries where people are allowed to come into America with no problem. And there's so many fucking people in so many different countries that are Muslim. I mean, it's whether it's Pakistan or Indonesia.
But then there's politics involved in that. I think somebody pointed out that a lot of, like Saudi Arabia or whatever, these are places where there are Trump hotels. I don't know if that's true.
Well, I don't know if that's true either, but the real issue is Syria is the hot topic, and I don't necessarily think this guy has the time, nor does he have the inclination to deeply look into things with a greater perspective than what he currently has.
Right.
You would think that, you know, Howard Stern had a very interesting thing that he said about Donald Trump, and I would defer to him because I think he knows Donald Trump personally. And he said that he doesn't think that this is good for Donald, like his mental health, which I thought was interesting because Howard was coming at it like as a friend. And he said essentially that Donald wants to be loved. And he said that, you know, that's what he wants, all these people to love him. He's like, I don't think this is a good job for him, like for his mind.
I know. It's fucking crazy.
It is crazy.
I remember when Chappelle hosted SNL and he was like, I'm going to give him a shot.
Yeah.
And that's what we were comforting ourselves with.
Right.
Those of us that weren't on board with him, we were
well, we only have this one thing that's right now the disturbing thing, right? There's not really a lot of other stuff. There's this one, the ban on immigrants is really, it's an issue because there's families that are coming over here and they have children and you see them and they're sad and desperate and it's scary. You know, you're leaving your home, you're seeking refuge in America, you have a travel visa and you can't get in. You know, that scares the fuck out of people because you think, I mean, that could be me, that could be my mom, that could be my sister.
Right, that was my mom. My mom fled World War II from Lithuania.
There you go. So, I mean, come on.
That's fucking insane.
That is fucking insane. I mean, it scares the shit out of us when we think that we could be so xenophobic that we could just put this like this blanket statement. But
well, it's what you said earlier. It becomes them. It's not us, it's them.
But on the other side, you don't want what's happening in Germany. You don't want what's happening in France. You don't want where you have these people that aren't integrating with the culture and they're creating these significant problems. And you have like what Merkel is dealing with right now in Germany, this culture clash, and you're having a lot of problems between people and these radical Muslim elements, and they're isolating and creating their own neighborhoods, and you know, and people don't want to integrate. They want to bring a piece of their country here, and they have extremely different values. I mean, whether you want to be critical of these people that live in the Middle East or not, the reality, and we all know this, when you look at the rights that women in Saudi Arabia are denied, the right to drive, they have to wear certain clothing, they have to look away when men are looking at them. I mean, there's a lot of shit that these women have to deal with that is a cultural standard in their part of the world.
That doesn't fly.
And if they bring that over to Germany, then you see these men that are from that part of the world that are in their 30s or whatever they are, they're grown adults, you know, whatever the age, and that is their standard of behavior. And now they're seeing white women in Germany, these German women that are not behaving, that are not acting in that standard, and they feel like these women are harlots. They feel like these women are sluts, and they can just do whatever they want with them. And you're finding, I mean, there's not... How many incidents are there? I don't know, but there's enough where it's a significant issue. There's enough that this is something that needs to be discussed. Like, you have this new element that you brought in, and how do you mitigate that without being racist, without being xenophobic? Right. How do you somehow or another encourage these people to evolve their culture? Because that's a real issue.
It is very interesting. It did make me think of we're both from Boston, and the Irish, segregated, kept to themselves, and there were Irish neighborhoods. Yeah. It gets tricky when something is so culturally different for us. They do have a right to have their neighborhood be however they want.
Sure.
But for some reason, it could be racism. It could be just it's not normal to us, the way that they behave with women or the way that they want women to behave.
That's not racism. It's a huge issue.
I understand. I don't want women to be sublimated in that way.
What's interesting is that you would think that would be totally in opposition of liberal values. But the liberals are the ones that are like really concerned with these people, with people not being Islamophobic, which is also a good thing to think. But there has to be some rational and reasonable consideration for the cultural differences that are vast and real and scary. And also, they're incredibly restrictive on women, incredibly restrictive, and on homosexuals. I mean, what you're seeing with ISIS throwing gay people off rooftops in Iraq, and it's some horrible, horrible shit that is the standard in that part of the world. And when you're dealing with a culture that is just programmed for so long to be oppressive towards homosexuals, to be oppressive towards women, like violently oppressive, where they think you're allowed to beat women. I watched one of the most horrible videos, and I should have never watched it, but it was a man and his daughter, and the daughter had been accused of adultery, and so he was going to be the guy. They were stoning his daughter to death, and he was the first guy to throw the stone, and his daughter was begging for mercy and reaching out to touch his hand, and he wouldn't touch her hand, and he hit her with the rock, and then they all threw the rocks at her, and I was like, fuck, this is just a religion, just an ideology that forces people into this. And if you take these people that are so deep in that ideology and so deep in that brainwashing, and then you bring them over to a free country, to a democratic country that has an open policy on religion and freedom of expression, do whatever you want, you're going to have a problem. There's going to be some sort of a gap that needs to be crossed. And I don't know how to do it. I mean, how do you make those people evolve their ideas? I just don't know.
Yeah,
scary.
I don't even. It's crazy.
So when you think about people coming into this country,
we're new at this, and there's going to be mistakes, and there's going to be things like that seem unsolvable problems. There is the human life element of it. We know that there's a basis of like people are dying and they need help.
Yes.
And then we go, well, people that we may not agree with are dying and need help.
Right.
You still go, we don't need to take LSD to go, well, you still need to help people that you don't agree with.
You're right. That's not the issue. And the vast majority, and let's be really clear, are never going to cause any problems. The vast majority are going to integrate fine. They're going to have friends that are Christians and Baptists and Mormons and whatever, and there's going to be no issues. The vast majority. But there are going to be a few issues. And when those issues pop up, then it always becomes highlighted. Oh, it's their religion. It's their ideology. It could be mental health issues. It could be a lot of things.
Didn't they just overturn something here in America, though, that it was like it's no longer a federal, or I don't know the legal speak, but it's no longer as serious of an offense as it used to be to beat your wife?
So, no, that was actually in Egypt. No, where was it? It was just a law that was just passed. Hold on a second. There was just a law that was just passed. Where the fuck was that? God damn it. I tweeted about it. Oh, Russia. It was in Russia.
Oh, it was Russia.
Yeah, it was Russia. Right. Yeah, crazy. Like domestic violence is decriminalized in Russia if it doesn't cause severe injury.
What I'm saying is we also have people here that are very backwards about women and gays. We have plenty of them. And they're also here. I'm just, again,
That's
I'm
true,
not a great devil's
the
advocate.
The Saudis and a lot of the Middle Eastern countries take that shit to a whole new level. Women aren't even allowed to drive.
Right.
I mean, they have to have a male companion when they go out at night.
Right.
I mean, there's some unbelievably regressive ideas that are just accepted because we don't want to appear to be homophobic or, Islamophobic.
And then there's Bob, I think is it Bob Jones? There's a Christian university where there's blue sidewalks for boys and pink for girls.
Yeah.
So everybody's fucked. What I'm saying is,
but they're not stoning people. They're not having a father
reject
that video,
his daughter's
but
hand. You just scarred me emotionally.
Well, honor killing is a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not like an imaginary idea that's never enforced. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
So is female genital mutilation.
Yeah.
You talk to Ayan Hirsi Ali about it, and she gets labeled an Islamophobe because she talks openly about the problems with the ideology. And she's a woman who experienced female genital mutilation. I mean, she had to flee her country, and now she's here writing books and giving lectures, and the hardcore left, the far left crazies are attacking her as being Islamophobic.
You know what's interesting about these very, very complicated, and you've just illuminated me in many ways, issues, is when things get really, really complicated, we do take comfort in what I call like the sling blade mentality. Remember Sling Blade?
Yeah.
So there's the drunk dad. Yeah. Some people call it a Kaiser blade. I call it a sling blade.
Yeah.
So that movie is like strangely pleasant in this weird way because the boy has the abusive father and the mother, and they're being held captive by this drunk asshole. Spoiler alert, it's from the 90s. You should have seen it by now.
Right.
In comes a simple man who is a graceful character, a compassionate character, and he kills the dad. He hits him in the head with a sling blade. That's why the movie's called Sling Blade, and he kills the guy. So it is this complicated thing. The drunk dad is a person. We could zoom out on him and be like, okay, why is he drinking? What's going on? How can we help him? How can we rehabilitate this guy? But there's something about being a human that occasionally, John Wick style, you just want a guy to go in and shoot a bunch of people.
Just clean the problem up in a simple way.
What I'm saying
is...
Like
punch Nazis.
That's what I'm saying. There you go. So complicated issues somehow attract overly simple responses.
That's because people are lazy.
That's where racism comes in. You go, I'm afraid that some people are dangerous. Well, these guys say black people are dangerous. I feel a little bit more comfortable because I look around this store and there's none of them.
Right.
When really there's a white guy that'll fuck you up just as bad as anybody in that same store. But we're looking for these click moments where we just go, John Wick shot the guy, go to bed. And that's what I think. And I'm actually trying to understand Trump supporters. I think there's a sling blade thing going on with Trump where he's like, look, what are we going to do? These people want to come in. Nobody likes people dying. But these people, maybe there's this threat of this, changing the culture, changing women, being bad this way, violent this way. Oh, let's just not let them in. It's like a panic answer. Don't let them in. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it appeals. That was one of the things that I find not too many people like me. I don't agree with Trump. But when I would watch the debates, I would catch something in my brain going, oh, this guy's driving the car. You know what I mean? Like he was such a blowhard and he had solutions that if I was quiet enough, I could recognize the part in my own psyche that went, Dad'll protect us.
Yeah, there's the appeal of the strong man.
That's what I'm
there's
saying.
The strong, confident man who stands in front of all of us and tells us he's got it.
But if we can't admit that, and I'm trying to admit that as much as I can, then we don't see my sister getting pepper sprayed by my brother. You know what I mean? Like we're all in it together. That's what I talk about good discourse. We need to go like Jon Stewart was like, these guys aren't afraid of Muslims. They're afraid of their health insurance premiums. That was like such a great quote. He was like, this plan was fucking them. They couldn't afford their insulin. So Trump comes in. He's like, don't worry about it. I'm going to get you jobs. I'm going to get you this. I'm going to get you that. And some other stuff, some hateful stuff is coming along with it, but they didn't have the luxury of being like, well, I got to go with Hillary. They couldn't. I guess.
Well, simplistic speak when it's coming from someone that holds the highest of high offices in our country, it's very dangerous. Because if you simplify things and say them in sort of just a kind of a blockheaded way, it appeals to blockheads.
It's not a football game. We can't go out there and win.
It's also they don't have to think now because you're not thinking. You're the leader's thinking like a blockhead.
That's what
I can think like a blockhead too.
When Obama became president, and I loved Obama. I didn't follow too closely, so I'm kind of a doofus in that way. But I loved the man that he was, and he seemed to do a good job. But he definitely inspired a lot of young black people to be like, oh, this could happen for me. I could be the president. Look at that example.
Right.
And now I do think there is a risk of being like, well, look at this guy who calls, what's her name, a fat ass and a pig, and he became president.
Right.
Who are you to tell me not to bully this kid in my class, I could be the president.
Right.
I called him a homo. I could be the leader of the free world. It's dangerous.
That becomes dangerous when you have someone who's the spokesperson who speaks in, like, again, these simplistic terms. Right. But when you look at what Obama really did, there was a bunch of issues where he didn't buck the system, where he did have the most drone strikes of any president ever, where he did crack down on whistleblowers, where he did the opposite of what he said in his Hope and Change website, where he wound up pulling that down because he had this whole segment in there about whistleblowers and protecting whistleblowers who are showing that there's some sort of illegal activity going on. Well, that's not the case at all, because everything that Edward Snowden did was show illegal activity. I mean, he's kind of exonerated Chelsea Manning, you know, so this is going to be kind of interesting.
That's why you can't pick it up or lay it down. You just have to look at it and allow that there's some bullshit either way. Because when I see Obama, some great vine of him meeting a basketball player and they do the soul shake and they play some amazing, and he's the coolest guy, and he's articulate, as you said, and he's intelligent, and he looks cool and all that stuff. Yeah, that guy also, that morning, had a meeting where they decided how many drones to blow up shit.
Well, not only that, the Dakota Access Pipeline, all that shit went down when he was the president. When they were making when they're cutting through private property and arresting ranchers because these ranchers did not want this fucking pipe going through their water system. Like, that was all on his watch. He could have stopped that. He could have stepped in.
That's kind of, it gets overwhelming. And then we go, geez, everyone is corrupt. Everyone's bought and paid for. And that's where you get people not voting. And that's when you get people going, let's light a Molotov cocktail and get somebody like Trump in there. That's what he seemed like in the voting booth. It was like status quo or brick through the window. And people were, it gets overwhelming. And there's nothing more simple than a brick through the window.